The council chamber of the Draconic Imperium stretched vast and imposing, its crystalline walls refracting the light of 3 suns into prismatic shadows. Elena Rin stood alone at the center, her small human frame dwarfed by the towering representatives of a dozen alien species. Their laughter echoed through the chamber like breaking glass. A human? Ambassador Thelzar's mandibles clicked in amusement, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming. The Imperium sends this to negotiate the dragon crisis? How desperate they must be. Elena's jaw tightened, but she maintained her composure. 6 months ago, the dragons of Iraxis Prime had gone silent. No species in the known galaxy had managed to communicate with them in over 3 centuries. They simply tolerated the other races, accepted tribute, and occasionally reduced cities to ash when provoked. Now something had changed. The dragons were agitated, unpredictable. Entire colonies had been evacuated. Humans are barely spaceworthy, sneered Counselor Rix, her serpentine form coiling around her hovering platform. What could your primitive species possibly offer? You can't even survive in most atmospheres without your pathetic suits. Elena had heard it all before. Humanity was the newest species to achieve interstellar travel, looked down upon by civilizations that had been exploring the cosmos for millennia. Too weak, too fragile, too emotional. The diplomatic corps had sent her because she was expendable, a linguist with unconventional theories and nothing to lose. If the council is finished, Elena said quietly, her voice steady despite the mockery, I'd like to begin. Begin what? Thelzar scoffed. Embarrassing yourself further? The Velthari tried their quantum communicators. The Zrax attempted neural linking. The great telepathic minds of Sigma 9 made no progress. What makes you think? Because none of you were listening, Elena interrupted. The chamber fell silent. To interrupt a council member was to court execution in some sectors. But Elena had spent 3 months analyzing every recording, every failed attempt at dragon communication. She'd seen what everyone else had missed. The dragons aren't aggressive, she continued, pulling up a holographic display from her wrist device. They're mourning. Rix laughed, a hissing sound. Mourning? They're beasts. Powerful ancient beasts, but beasts nonetheless. No, Elena said firmly. They're people, and you've been treating them like weapons or obstacles for 300 years. She expanded the hologram, showing waveform analyses. Every species has tried to communicate through dominance displays, mathematical proofs, or telepathic commands. You've been speaking at them, not with them. She'd spent weeks on Viraxis Prime's moon, close enough to observe, but far enough to be safe. She'd watched the dragons circle the extinct volcanic islands where they'd once nested. She'd recorded their calls. Not the fearsome roars of legend, but something else. Something haunting. I'm going down there, Elena announced. Alone. That's suicide, Thelzar said, but his tone had shifted from mocking to curious. Perhaps, Elena acknowledged, but I'd rather die trying to understand them than live knowing I treated sentient beings as problems to be managed. The volcanic plains of Viraxis Prime shimmered with heat distortion. Elena stood without her environmental suit, breathing the sulfurous air that burned her lungs with each inhalation. Humans were fragile, yes, but they were also adaptable. Her body would adjust or she'd suffocate. Either way, she'd meet the dragons as herself, not hidden behind technology. The ground trembled before she saw him. Falcor descended from the ash-dark sky, scales like burnished obsidian reflecting the orange glow of lava flows. He was massive, easily 200 meters from snout to tail. Ancient. His eyes, amber and infinite, fixed upon her. The other species would have prostrated themselves or activated defense shields. Elena did neither. She sat down on the scorched earth, making herself smaller, and she sang, not words, not language as the council understood it. She sang the waveforms she'd analyzed, grief and loss transformed into melody by human vocal cords. She sang of empty nests and vanished children, of a species pushed to the edges of their own world by those who saw them only as magnificent terrors. Valkor's massive head tilted. His throat rumbled, not a roar, but a response. A harmony. Elena's eyes widened. She adjusted her melody, and Valkor adjusted his. They were conversing, not in words, but in emotion, in mathematical beauty expressed through sound. The dragons communicated through resonance, through tones that carried feeling and meaning far beyond simple language. For hours they sang together, Elena learned of the dragon's pain, how their young had stopped hatching, how the electromagnetic interference from the alien colonies had disrupted their breeding grounds, how they'd tried to communicate this for decades, but every species had only sent soldiers or scientists who refused to listen. When Valcor finally fell silent, he lowered his enormous head until his eye was level with Elena. She reached out, trembling, and placed her small hand against his scales. They were warm, alive with ancient power. In that moment, something passed between them. Recognition, respect. "I understand," Elena whispered. "And I'll make them listen." The council chamber erupted in chaos when Elena returned with her recordings, with the solutions the dragons had sung to her. "Relocate the colonies. Restore the magnetic fields. Give them space to heal. Impossible," Telzar protested. "The economic impact is irrelevant." Elena cut him off, and this time her voice carried the weight of Velkor's ancient authority. "You have a choice. Treat the dragons as partners, as the sentient civilization they are, or face their wrath. But understand this, they're not monsters. They're parents fighting for their children's survival." She transmitted the final recording, Velkor and 17 other elder dragons singing together, a chorus of pain and hope that resonated through the chamber's audio systems. It was the most beautiful and terrible sound the council had ever heard. Rix's serpentine form had gone rigid. Thelzar's mandibles hung open. Every species present felt it, the raw, undeniable personhood in that song. "Humans." Valkor's voice rumbled through the translation system Elena had built. Speaking publicly for the first time in 3 centuries. "Understand loss. Understand struggle. This Elena Rin, small and fragile, did what your mighty civilizations could not." She listened. The reforms began within days. Colonies relocated. Technology adapted. And Elena Rin, the human they'd mocked, became the first ambassador to the draconic consciousness, a position that reshaped galactic politics forever. Because humanity's weakness had always been its greatest strength. The ability to see people in the most unlikely places, and the courage to reach out anyway.